Live now, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning, members, officers and viewers. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. I would remind members that this meeting is being streamed live to the public, and I request that you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. And I also remember members to ensure that the chat function is switched on and use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to speak, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. As well as being broadcast live, a recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded onto the Council's website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting, whilst translations of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes. Okay, thank you. We take acknowledgement, please,
Councillor Baker Westhead and Councillor Jason Hughes and Stephen Bushell.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest at this point? No, thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting. And just for clarity, if you do have a pack, we're looking at the numbering on the portrait papers rather than the landscape papers. Clarity then, previous minutes, pages 3 and 4. We have a point arising, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it was back in November last year. We asked whether the university would be able to attend a scrutiny committee. Since then, we've got minutes to say we would ask them, and we've had an officer response, but we still haven't had any email trails to suggest the university having advanced but haven't been invited. As a committee, we all agreed it was important that we receive this information, so hopefully we will get the email trail and the officers who sent the invitation to the university that have sent in, and also the response from the university, and hopefully they will be able to attend.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the minutes? No, thank you. Then we move on to item 4 then, please. Public electric vehicle charging strategy. Is Mr. Jones available? No. We please apologies. Ms. Gonzalez, lovely.
Yes.
Yes. Presenting.
I am, well, and together with Ross Catlett, who's the climate change service manager.
Thank you.
So just a very, very brief introduction before I allow Ross to go into the detail. Just in a nutshell, essentially, decarbonisation of the fleet is really important. Is key for us if we want to really reduce our carbon emissions. It's one of our key priority areas if we want to meet our ambitious targets here in Newport. And for people to be able to use electric vehicles, there need to be chargers in place. And we need to lead from a public perspective and ensure there's an adequate network of chargers across different settings. So we've already done some work on that. We're making progress, but we need to have a structured, agreed approach to how we go about it. So essentially, we really need to have a strategy in place that sets out what we want to do, how we're going to do it. So we've drafted the document, and we're going to engage with you to get your views on the content of the document, and also about the public consultation that we want to do as part of the approval process. So you've had the document there with the draft of the consultation, the questions, and we'd like to hear your views. And if Ross, I mean, he can go into a bit more detail about the document and our aims.
Thank you, Sylvia. So really the key things driving the need for the move to electric vehicles is the drive towards decarbonisation, and also the ability of electric vehicles to improve air quality around the UK and here in our city. So as Sylvia said, we've done some previous work around electric vehicle charging, and this is around the formalisation of our approach going forward. As members will be aware, the UK government have banned the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles from 2030, and in recent months, around 1 in 5 vehicles sold in the UK was an electric vehicle. So the numbers of electric vehicles on the road is increasing all the time. There are now over 1 million in the UK, and that growth is going to be exponential. So our work here is about trying to kind of get ahead of that growth and make sure that the access to electric vehicle charging infrastructure is both adequate and equitable. So within the document, the overall aim is around reducing road transport carbon emissions and pollution via providing electric vehicle charging to encourage the uptake of electric vehicles. And then there are 6 key themes within the documents, and these are the kind of different areas where people will need to charge if they do have an electric vehicle. So I'll list them now. So we range from home charging, on-street charging, workplace charging, charging hubs, destination charging, and en route charging. Now, as a public body, we see our role in each of those as being slightly different, and we've laid that out within the document. In areas such as home charging, our role will be sort of signposting residents and potential adopters of electric vehicles. With on-street charging, this is our key role really in the city. We have 22,000 households that do not have private off-street parking, so they will not be able to install a charger at their own property. So we'll need sort of that public provision close to their homes. On the workplaces, again, for us, that's more of a signposting exercise. And then theme 4 around hub charging, this is the model where you have something akin to a petrol station as it is now. So areas where you have very high power charges, maybe access to facilities, amenities such as a cafe, and residents either visiting the area or living here would be able to charge up in a very short space of time, similar to the fuel up now at the petrol station. Then with destinations, see, as the name suggests, this is residents or visitors going to somewhere for leisure or to supermarkets, etc. And then en route charging is thinking about our main routes and how we can help and facilitate the delivery of that kind of petrol station type facility. So in terms of how we roll this out, how we measure success, we have been successful historically in obtaining grant funding from central government and UK government, Welsh government and central government, and we have identified funding to continue to use 100% grant funding for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Right, could I remind the committee that we're really looking at is the strategy is suitable and sufficient? It's going quite a long way into the future. Some of the requirements in there are quite optimistic, and we hope that it'll pass and then we'll get the number of electric vehicles on our roads, and to see if it fits in with the existing Newport strategies for let's call it greening. Okay, let the open, please.
Yeah, Chair.
Thank you. That's a very.
Well, yeah, what's in the report? There's clearly a need for it. I think that's a well-written constructive report with good objectives and targets. A couple of things, mate. Well, it's great that funding's going to come from the Welsh government. That's really good. And in the report mentions there's currently 56 stations in Newport, and it depends which website you look at. I looked at one this morning and different, and it said there were only 47, and didn't actually include something on board. I'll just check now with the ZAP map that the council's recommended, and that is up to date. So I was wondering, how do we know where is the definitive source of where these charging stations are currently? And secondly, if I may, in this questionnaire at the back, question 9 asks a question that I can't find any reference in the report to. It mentions, would people be willing to rent electric cars by the hour? But there's no actual content of that in the report, so I just wondered where that came from. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the definitive numbers of vehicle chargers like what are in Newport, there is a government-owned national charge point registry. However, it's not always completely up to date. So there's also the sort of crowdsource platform that you mentioned, which is that where data is uploaded by charge point installers and by residents. So we have to do our best between the two to keep track of the number of chargers. We do have our own records, obviously, for the chargers that we have installed on our properties as well. Those 3 sources. And then with regards to question 9 in the questionnaire around car clubs, yes, correct. This hasn't been addressed as a specific aim of the strategy because obviously the strategy is about electric vehicle charging, but it is to try and understand the potential interest in the move to car clubs for the city, which may lead into future work. So it's added in there as a kind of related question, because in the hierarchy of moving to more sustainable transport, obviously personal electric vehicles are lower down in the list. We appreciate that people still need to use vehicles. So if we can utilise some of the charging that we install to host electric car clubs, then we can reduce people's need for car ownership, reduce cars on our streets, while also getting the air quality.
Before I call in Councillor Rheoli, could I just ask a supplementary on the numbers of charging points? Is there any work being undertaken to get us to a definitive number? You explained we have a national source and we have local source. So we get anything?
Yes, we'll take that as an action to learn exactly this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rheoli?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I caught quite an interesting discussion on the radio the other day, and in which basically they were warning us that in about 7 years' time, 2030, when the use of electric vehicles will be so common that actually we would be facing quite a problem, finding sufficient charging points as and when they're required and that sort of thing. And it kind of made me think, really, 7 years is not a long time. Can I ask, do we have a statutory duty as a local authority for providing electric charge points? And, what is the extent of that statutory duty? And the other thing is, where does the sort of private sector responsibility comes in on this one? Because you would think, that they would be interested, as they won't be selling petrol or diesel as much, then they would be sort of providing the electric charging points. How do we sort of fit in with the private sector there? These, are not the question. Are we aware of them? Are we working towards them? Are we in fact happy that in 7 years' time there would be sufficient infrastructure to serve the need, of the motorists then?
Thank you. So with regards to whether there'll be a sufficient number of charge points in place, we're using the best available information we have in terms of the modelling, predictive modelling of electric vehicle uptake, and we have, different scenarios around the number of charge points that we think will be required within Newport to meet that demand. So in terms of whether the council have a statutory duty to provide charging or not, we don't. But there are numerous benefits coming from the move to electrified transport for our residents, in terms principally around things like air quality. With regards to the involvement of the private sector, it's important to actually be clear that the figures within the reports cover the total number of charges, not just those delivered by the public sector. So private sector are active within Newport already, obviously because they operate on a purely commercial basis currently. They are working with specific partners such as retail outlets, such as motorway service stations, and sort of destinations such as supermarkets. They're going to cover off those bases. There hasn't been much move by the private sector currently to come into the public realm, especially in that area of on-street charging. So if it was left purely to the private sector, I think the rollout of charging would not be kind of equitable and not be done in a way which encourages people to move to electric vehicles only to meet current demand.
Okay, so, if we have residents, I mean, I've had requests from residents to have electric charging points put in their streets. Is that's a reasonable demand that we can actually meet within the strategy?
Yes, so in terms of on-street charges, we keep a register of any resident that contacts us asking for electric vehicle charges. And then when we are mapping out and looking at potential locations to deploy them, we use that information to show that we do have a need in that area. And subject to things like current parking restrictions, physical restraints and the availability of an electricity supply, we will look to place on-street chargers within that location because there is a clear demand in that area for them. We're not able to meet specific requests for specific properties, and we're currently not able to allow residents to install their own charging devices out on the public highway.
Do they have to prove need, or can they make the request and we will actually sort of establish whether the request is reasonable?
We'll use the information from one or more requests to take that as an indication of need, as opposed to just mapping out suitable locations in the city. So those sites where we have had direct contact will be prioritised.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What integration is happening with the electric points and the electricity supply industry? I think from memory, a streetlight, for instance, they supply 2 kVA to it if they're supplying it directly, but if it's on any other loops, that can be very much smaller.
So for each location where we install an electric vehicle charging point, we obviously have to make an application to the local grid operator, and they will make a judgment on the essentially the size of electrical supply that can be sustained in that area. Sometimes there is significant upgrade required, which is sort of not economical, and we may look to reduce the speed of the charger or change the location. But ultimately, we are reliant on the local grid operator to give us consent to go ahead with any charger installations.
Thank you. Councillor Eleanor Wamey, are you done, or are you still?
Yeah, I'm finished. Sorry.
Okay, Councillor James.
I've got some questions about the consultation comms. I would like to know how, what your goals are in terms of how many responses you're going to receive. What sort of promotion are we looking at, and how are you going to measure the success of that promotion? So, for example, one thing we consistently hear on this committee is we've done 12 social media posts. Are you going to be measuring how many people those reach and how many people then go on to click, and how are you going to use learnings from previous consultations to tweak how you promote that.
Before you answer, Mr. Bennett, I noticed that Mr. Cornwall is online and he's normally dealt with these questions before about the success of the consultations and the numbers of people that respond. Unless you've got particular answers to that, maybe Mr. Cornwall would be kind enough to take that one.
Hello, Chair. Tracy McKibb is in the room with you, who's leads on consultations.
Thanks. Anyway, what me like Councillor.
Could I just say, Mr. Cornwall, your brother would be proud of that. Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
That's the question, Councillor, is about social media reach and how we learn from that, I think.
In part social media reach, but in general, how are you going to learn from previous consultations to inform how you're going to promote this one, and how are you going to measure whether or not the way you promote it is going to be successful? So I gave social media as an example, but I didn't just mean social media.
Okay, I'll start with social media because I guess that's the easiest one to answer. So what we can look at, I think, Councillor, you've made the point before that there are more sophisticated tools that we do need to look at, but do have a cost. But we can look at individual tweets, posts, and we understand the reach of those. We also use a number of different forums, such as, obviously we've got the bus Wi-Fi, we've got Citizens Panel, we use our Newport Youth Council and so on. And on one of our other engagement reports, we try and work out what is popular, if you like, responded to survey in order to see what we can do in future. We find that does relate more to the subject often than the medium, of course. People are more interested in talking about certain things, and they are interested in talking about this. Actually, people have, an opinion on these things. So we do kind of learn on an iterative basis what works, and we talk to the service areas about that.
Okay, thank you. I have another question actually about the hub. What was the word in the hub charging? I'm really glad to see a focus on taxi charging hubs, but what I'm not seeing, and that might be because it wouldn't be part of this strategy, if so, then tell me that. I'm not seeing if there are any measures to increase the number of taxi drivers who use electric vehicles.
You're correct. Yeah, this strategy is covering the provision of EV charging to meet that need. Separate work will have to be done around a programme for supporting and encouraging the uptake of low emission taxis. I know trials have been done before in collaboration with Cardiff Capital Region, but it is an area that more focus is required in.
Okay, thank you.
That completes Councillor James. Councillor Evans.
Peter, looking from a slightly different angle. At the moment, certainly you're going to have a job to do, because at the moment, my one experience in an electric vehicle, spending 5 hours going to somewhere which would take 2 in a car, an old one, was challenging, difficult. And when you look at residents, how are we going to encourage them when it comes to the costs? There's no mention here about costs to residents. So in other words, if they had to park it in a car park overnight, a council one, would it be charging them council car parking charges as well as electricity? Because that's going to make it punitive. And a lot of people will not be able to simply afford that. So I think we need to look at it from the point of view of residents. Benefits perhaps for them. Are we going to let them use bus lanes for electric cars? Car sharing and things like that. because much would like to do it and I could afford them. Hello, second. How can we encourage them without making it punitive? So are we making it, easy? Are we going to be charging people cost price for implementation at the nearest places to their homes? So there's no any consultation about how can we encourage you to move over to electric vehicle. I mean, I guess that's the thing which is going to be the toughest job to do. And I'd like to know if there's any way you could put this in a consultation to ensure what we do to ensure you go to an electric car, I suppose.
No, thank you. That's a good point. We'll have a look at the way the form of questions formatted at the moment to have more of an emphasis on that. In terms of making it attractive for people to move to electric vehicles, apart from that kind of hard deadline that the government have imposed around 2030, there's that chicken egg situation between uptake of vehicles and availability of infrastructure. So if we can make infrastructure available in people's local area, but also inform them of its presence and make it visible, that's one way in which we believe we can support people to have the confidence to make that shift. Around other incentives, it is currently cheaper to operate an electric vehicle than it is a petrol and diesel vehicle. So I can't speak for the private networks that do and will operate within Newport, but the public sector-led network operates in a way in which the costs are met. And actually, we do have contracts with the charge point operator who takes on any kind of risk around that as well. So that's sort of not borne by the public at present. But we aim to be competitive and to make the cost of charging the vehicle comparable to other networks and certainly lower than operating a fossil fuel vehicle.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed in the is we've got fast charging and rapid charging. And slow as well. I think slow as well. I don't know if there's an explanation in there. If you're going to consultation about which type, perhaps it needs to be fast charging is 20 minutes or whatever, rapid charging is 10 minutes, slow charging is 7 days or whatever the type of thing will be. So,
no, thank you. Yeah, we will add that for clarity because it's even the naming isn't as clear as you might think.
thank you.
Is there anyone else? Can I just ask something on the numbers of electric vehicles? 90,000 vehicles by 2040. 90,000 vehicles. Where did the numbers come from, please?
These are based on figures that were undertaken as part of the creation of our local area energy plan, and they're based on the Department of Transport figures on current numbers of vehicles licensed and expecting growth, and then that's for vehicles as a whole, and then the numbers of electric vehicles on the chart on page 19, that is based on sort of predicted uptake using some national best available information currently.
Yeah. It's somewhat counterintuitive though towards our greening strategy that we're looking for much more engagement on public transport, South East Wales, metro, etc., etc. But how many vehicles do we have on the city? Of all sorts.
Outside of cars, I don't have that big look.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Forsey, thank you very much for coming along this morning. Was there anything you wanted to add before we close on this?
Well, I'm just very pleased to see this report come to Scrutiny and thank the officers for the work they've done on it and thank the committee for the comments. It's it's a very necessary strategy, isn't it? And electric vehicles are going to be very important for the reduction of use of petrol and diesel vehicles are from the air quality. Is the seat continue?
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. One of our colleagues had just suggested we could take the consultation update as Ms. McKim is here at the moment, but is that inconvenience in the other offices, you know? So, are you happy to do that now?
Yeah.
So we're moving on to items 7, please.
That is probably is the shortest then. That is probably is the shorter item. You know me, Tracy McKim and my colleague, Janice Glenn. So this is the report share that came last time. It's an information report actually for the committee rather than a full scrutiny item, but last time your report members could see all of the data in the report. It updates on the budget consultation and the different surveys that were undertaken, which we went through really briefly last time. So I think they're on page 75 in your pack.
Indeed.
Similar to the conversation we just had about other things, we undertake a whole range of consultation using different methods and forms of promotion, and we are getting stronger at that, I think, and doing better there. We talked last time about having better results than we'd had previously. The whole consultation, the whole population consultation is only part of that. Of course, individual managers talk to service users and receive feedback directly, and we also received feedback from the trade unions, the Fairness Commission and other such bodies, which were all included in the cabinet report. The online survey on the public Wi-Fi was 653 responses. We appreciate that's quite a small survey, but we try and bring people in to answer more questions using that survey, in as much as you can only do so much kind of on public transport. The in-depth online survey was 820 responses, which although low is better than we've done previously. And we received a further 400 different representations, which were then looked at by cabinet members. The total budget engagement, this is on page 77 in your pack. So we also had the pre-budget engagement exercise bringing in 865 responses, bringing us up to 2,700, which again is better than we've done before, but not as good we thought last time about sometimes we get on other subjects actually. So it's just any questions from scrutiny on that item.
Can I just interrupt you?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Like I said, when I looked at the questions and the responses, I just found it difficult to understand. One example here about open short break provision. Because according to this, half the people couldn't care less, and half the people, and I found that, well, I couldn't really understand how that is. I guess if you're not using the service, but it did seem still very hard, because I would have thought social services education would be, but a lot of people would have thought, you know, they are like quite high priorities, and I just sort of question the numbers of, you know, that does seem insensitive, I suppose, where others understandable. response on community bin connections and team. I was just wondering if there was a specific mindset of the people that I don't know, maybe it's just a survey and people didn't know what it was anyway, or
In fairness to the officer, you know, whilst you might muse over what people think, it's not something I feel we can really give you an answer for.
why should we go to try?
Specifically, but the general point you make, I think, which is about specific, if I call them high need services to vulnerable people. We do see in whole population surveys lots of interest in those things that impact on every member of the population. If I look at it in the other way, rather than specific specific services, actually. The data on Oaklands specifically, I know was consistent with other social services proposals, because I think you said that really quickly last time. Yeah, and it is consistent with those other proposals, which says this isn't about Oakland, but it is about really high need services that have a very big impact on a small number of people, don't always feature as you might expect in a broad population survey. Some people might not have heard of it and know what it does. And, you know, sorry to say to colleagues. There were, however, a very significant number, Oakland specifically, I know, families who wrote or emailed, and all of those responses were taken into account, and they referenced in the Cabinet report separately. And Janice said she wants to answer, and I just had never. So did you want to?
No, it was just to say really. So the numbers on this were the survey and the Wi-Fi numbers. What I found, because I was involved with the colleagues in the short breaks adult service, and people responded via letter or via email on that and didn't necessarily answer any of the other questions. It was very much the strength of feeling, which you can understand. So I think that's why probably the numbers kind of don't always reflect the strength of feeling about the service, because again, you know, those people that were directly affected by, we felt very strongly about it.
So if people felt strongly enough and emailed them their objections, they would be included in the survey because they went to the surveys.
They were included in the feedback provided to Cabinet members.
Yeah. Not within these numbers.
But not in these numbers, yeah, that's right.
So that's helpful to those that perhaps in the future, but if people do respond to those issues, that they're included.
Just as a response.
As a response, because they think the authority.
Yeah. But there was, you know, I would want to reassure anyone else listening that those are not very yeah, it was at the numbers.
And I would echo what you say, because in my own report I was heavily canvassed by family who were using that service, but that was his grandmother, mother and child level, if you like. So yeah, they do see their case very vociferously. They do. But anyone else?
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Well, first of all, just want to say well done to the people of St Julian's. We were the largest. At those numbers, they 99.55% made up that survey. Is great. Obviously, are engaging. And also, how do we collect other people's comments? I mean, currently on the council's website, if you click on the let's put the have your say survey, there's currently on there one from the Underwood Green Connected Community Survey, and if you go for that, but there's not. I thought maybe we're missing a trick. Maybe at the end, there's no currently at the end of that survey, there's no option to say, would you like to leave your email so we could add you onto other surveys in the future? Not how we're not asking people to take part in one survey, more likely, up to 3 numbers. No, we've got the citizens forum. I just wondered how we maybe just missed the trick there, don't we?
I agree with that, actually. People who are likely to respond are likely to respond. I always respond to absolutely everything. So yes, that probably is something we're missing a trick on, and we'll make that helpful.
And then you go without asking the really difficult question, how are we going to improve next year's survey results?
We some of our learning is we continue and try to make the survey real and understood. So there is something about people really understanding, and with the budget, it's extremely difficult. They're very big decisions that affect a wide range of services. We do tend to get better responses. Say we were talking about city centre safety, everyone gets that, everyone has an opinion. So we need to make it real. We are looking at our social media responses. I know that came up earlier about which kind of tweets or posts have the most interest, because that is the way into getting more responses on the survey. And I guess as we come out of COVID and we're more in communities, there's no replacement for using other events. We can't really invest in having lots of people out there. We don't have that number of staff, but we can go to existing events and existing places where people are, and try and bring in people who are less likely to respond actually to surveys, and kind of capture that audience. Again, we're mindful there's a real balance there. When people turn up to a council event, they don't always want to stand and be bothered by someone with a survey, but that is something we try and do. So, and we're always looking to build on the numbers.
I think just obviously this year is going to give us a bit more opportunity in relation to community events. I think some of the learning from this committee for this year was around giving people notice when we were going out to events. So even though we visited some of the warm tanks, we didn't actually give that notice. Yes. But also with the ward meetings being re-established this year as well, that'll give us the opportunity to see more people through that. So the face-to-face, I think we definitely can do more this year. We have learned from that and from scrutiny, from family members, etc. over this period. So it gives us that incentive to improve.
Get some cash prizes or holidays. Sponsored by
An electric car.
Yeah. Mr. Coleman, did you want to comment on this?
Thanks, Chair. He was coming on Councillor Evans' point, but I'll pick up Councillor Bright's point first of all. So that's a really interesting one. We always used to do that. I used to be on the end of all of our surveys. There was an email address to put yourself forward for the citizens panel. So I think that's something definitely to pick up. We talked about this previously in committee around the consultation responses. So there's a balance to be struck between the weighted numbers and the responses from those people who are actively involved in the services you're consulting upon. So, I think, as we're heading into, the upcoming budget setting process and consultation, we probably within your work programme probably need to allocate some time to talk through the committee's views about how that should unfold over the summer and the autumn. So that might be something to consider within your work programme setting. It's in your remit of the committee. You're not just here to receive the outcomes of the consultation responses. You're here to have an active role in how we go about undertaking that work as well. So it's probably worth some more in-depth conversation around some of those trickier issues.
Thank you. And there are some slots available for those discussions to take place if it's our wish. Councillor Alan Wamey, you indicated as well, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I really value that last comment from Reece. I think really it's to learn from it, rather than just to know the figures. And I fully agree with what he's saying, that actually, we can make ourselves a little bit more time in terms of how we look at some of the issues that, we can really there's a quality of the feedback that we get from the public and from other organizations that were involved in the consultation. Because what I was going to say also, that I found the comments particularly from the Fairness Commission and from the trade unions really very relevant this time, particularly on those measures which we've actually did did actually roll back from, like the Aucklands and others, because of the comments of fairness and how it affected other groups, which means really that sometimes, it's a numerical. I think it's good to know how our public feel about some of the measures we propose in terms of, when we have to make a very difficult choice between services, which one should we use to sort of take funding from and which one we should use to actually retain the funding or maybe add to it or whatever. It's very important to know, the client group. And I think that's one way of giving ourselves that time. So I think overall I felt, Chair, because on this occasion, I really did look at the consultation. I did take part in it just to see what sort of, exercise ordinary residents would have to go through in order to provide answers. Some of it, of course, would have called on quite a bit of knowledge for them to make sort of what we might call educated choices and so on. But some others, they could respond in terms of how it affects people they know, people who use the services and all that. All in all, I felt really the consultation this time has actually been quite an improvement on previous years. It's not the finished article by any means, and I think this is where I feel the comment from the strategic directors are really useful. There is no substitute for actually consulting with the targeted group, with the people we aim to sort of alter the service for. And I think the more we can move towards that sort of model where we can actually involve the stakeholders affected by our decision, the better it's going to be. On the whole, I felt the quality of the consultation this time was definitely better than previous years, and I would, commend the officers for that. But I think there is some way to go, and for us, quite honestly, to play the role to make sure that that consultation is as meaningful as possible. But I do finish by saying the Fairness Commission and the Trade Union Commons this time have been really very important in terms of sort of impacting on how I would sort of make a choice, because really they highlighted the kind of effects, really, the adverse effects on the client groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your accommodations. Do you require a specific answer to any of those points? Councillor, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, do you require a specific
No,
answer?
I don't. I have finished now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you very much for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.
Please, my lord. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I hope you don't mind, members. We're just pausing for 5 to see if the head of corporate safeguarding is available to come.
Yeah, that's been doing.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Can we start the recording again, please? Good morning. Ms. Jenkins, are you going to start on this and then pass over to your officers?
Yes, I'll just do a really quick introduction. So thank you and welcome, and thank you for the time to be able to present the report to Scrutiny. This is the annual safeguarding report. Natalie and Mary obviously both there as head of children's and head of adults, and Finn is there as our head of corporate safeguarding. Difficult to say that on a Friday. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the report, and I've no doubt that you will have questions. You always do on this report, and rightly so. I suppose in some ways stating what we all know is that safeguarding is an absolute imperative for the local authority. It is a key responsibility in order to ensure that we protect our most vulnerable citizens. And while safeguarding is the work of everyone, clearly we need to drive and take a lead in this area. So I'm going to hand over to Finn. Obviously, I'll still be here, but I'm sure Natalie and Mary equally, if not more, capable of picking up any questions that you may have with Finn. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Riddell.
Thank you and good morning. So this is the sixth corporate safety report. This is an interim report because I think we last met 7 months ago, so it's not been a full reporting year. We're still realigning, I think, after COVID and etc. So we're kind of getting our processes in order. So it is a further interim report with less than a year of an update. It's been a very busy 7 months, as one would imagine from safeguarding. We've done a bit of kind of analysis about our data. We've done some understanding of kind of referral rates. We've worked across the directorate in relation to corporate safeguarding, making sure that we've got people in each directorate who have some basic understanding about what they need to do, should they see anything. So we're kind of rolling that programme through. We've made some improvements and developments in relation to champions within directorates as a headline. We're meeting biannually initially. We've made that quarterly now because I think that was feedback from them saying it wasn't enough. So we've got a bit more of a mechanism to create a bit more dynamism in relation to the sort of rollout, delivery and understanding across the local authority about safeguarding. And just an example of one of the things we're going to be talking about, which will reflect in next year's report, we will have a hot topic section where we have interface from all of the directorates about what it is, what it means to them and what they've faced in relation to safeguarding from their perspective, which may be quite different to what we face in social care. So I think we're trying to be broader in what we're seeing. We are working collectively with heads here, so we've established now that we meet regularly. So I attend meetings with Mary's World, Natalie's World and Caroline Ryan Phillips' World as well. So we're really looking at that golden thread of safeguarding across the directorate. And as Mary said to me in a previous meeting, my job is to hold people to account. Feels quite scary, but I will do it. And I think it's just about looking at consistency and measurements across the authority, particularly in social care in this instance, but obviously wider, to look at how we represent ourselves well and keep citizens safe. Like Sally said, that's our bread and butter. That's what we do, and I think we do it well. And I hope that's reflected in the report. I think just to talk a bit about some of the other areas of work. I mean, I think the interface that we have with partners, so fundamentally police and health, is very, very good. We are well regarded and well respected, and there's a reason for that, because we do it well. And also, I'm not afraid to challenge. So I think if we are unhappy or feeling that we need to raise something, we do that with some vigour, but professional vigour. I think that, again, brings a layer of respect and understanding about how we make things better for vulnerable citizens. Working really closely with the Safeguarding Board as well across the region, and we are very much a key player in the delivery models that they present across the region, and one of their, I would argue, go-to local authorities to kind of ask for input work to create any sort of new models of work as well. And that's two-way, because I think what we learn regionally, we want to roll out locally also. So we're very keen to have that two-way process around how we share information that is very, very pertinent. I'm, I guess, second guessing a question about the training data, so I'll just go there now. Also happy to answer any questions. The data is inconsistent in its reflection here because it's collected from 3 different points. We are going to press simplify on that because I think that's something that we can, as a quick win, we can make sure that we are robust in what we're seeing. I know, hand on heart, that education staff are compliant and safeguarding. training. They've got to be. I cover education safeguarding as part of my remit, and it's really important that obviously that's the second biggest referral that we have into social care. So we are absolutely robust in what we're doing. I think what we have is different processes of data collection. We will look at that from a more simplistic perspective and look at the development of a dashboard where we can have that data at a glance, live data. With that process, we can then identify areas where we can see that there isn't such a high take-up, and we can use that via the corporate safeguarding campaigns as well. So we are looking at that simplification of data presentation and live knowledge of what has gone on, but then also using the safeguarding champions to kind of feed into their areas to kind of give that a push as well. More than happy to take any more questions on that, because that's very early days development, but I know that's been approved in other areas as well in terms of the mandatory training modules that exist throughout the local authority.
That's right.
Yeah, just on that point, I mean, obviously you look at this report, you think, no, that can't be true, that's seen. So can I just suggest you take it up altogether for starters, because if we're using two different systems, then that data is obviously inaccurate, and just remove it, because it's just so yeah, I mean that specific point. Did you want any more comments on training in January now? We finished all much good.
I think.
Well, sorry, can I just take up on that? Yeah. Having real-time data officer shooting, obviously great, but what are you going to do with this real-time data?
I think what we established that the training, the mandatory training has to be every 2 years, so we'll look at that cycle of filling that data, that compliance. Where we can see that there are gaps in service, the data is so sophisticated in terms of its collection by the model work we're proposing. We can name names almost, we can identify and go straight to that team, that individual if necessary. So we will have much more of a drill down in terms of what hasn't been done. And also an understanding of if someone's left or if someone's recently joined the authority and their 2-year cycle as well. So it just allows us to interrogate from a central perspective better than we are looking at individual spreadsheets that people keep at the moment. So it just gives us a bit more live richness, I think, we can then challenge.
Okay, thank you. Committee, questions, please. Let's see, you knew go for this report, but then please consent. Okay, please, Councillor.
Can I just say, I appreciate we need a lot of information, but I kind of looked at the point, thought, well, yeah, ultimately safeguarding is probably one of the most critical things any local authority can do. With if you had a case of forbidden nuclear, if somebody would be shockingly abused or something, then there would be headlines. So I guess we want reassurances that you're doing everything possibly you can within your. And we need to know areas of concern, and it's highlighted in here on the training. I kind of got lost with all the data around the training, rather than the key thing and what we can do, what you can do to ensure that training levels are significantly higher than they are at the moment. I'm assuming you changed over. We used to have a system where you used to log on with a password and go into some cyberspace up in South East Wales, and it wasn't very user friendly at all. Hopefully we've stopped. Have we stopped that now? Or is it still?
It's still in existence now. However, there's a national training framework that's come out from the Wales Safeguarding Procedures, which is the 5A to E categorisation of tiers of training. So, for example, elected members would be tier F. People at the front door, so it's graded, and I think that will be delivered in a much more straightforward manner. It's still early days for that because it only got launched last November, and we're waiting for the kind of rollout of what that would look like. But I would hope for a much more straightforward.
Because you get other ones. I had your IT surveys from IT where I've just clicked on the link, I've watched it, answered the questions, and they've got my details, and it's finished. So I actually think that's not your area, but we should be recommending to IT to sort this out, to make it as easy as possible for people to get on their computers, click a button, do the training, and rather than token passwords that go to outside. It's always actually, yeah, and you know, people are going to use the will to live. Time is money as well. We can be getting on with it. So yeah, from that point of view, I just think that we can make the recommendation. But I think we've raised it in the past that it has been no concern. There's no reason in this day and age why it should be complicated to access a training course.
So it's Mary Ryan for Adult Services, and it just really reiterates what you're saying. It can feel very complicated when there's so many different training bits of data that's in here. So it is about, we will look at that in terms of simplifying that. But obviously it's very, very important that as a scrutiny, you are assured that the training is happening, because there's, you know, the training is very important in terms of obviously the mandatory training, but from a sort of social services perspective, across adults, children, early intervention and prevention, we're picking up stuff from other needs, in terms of adult practice reviews, child practice reviews. So with the learning out of that, we need to make sure that's embedded in that training in terms of sort of what's our sort of hot topics now and what we need to make sure staff are up to date with. So training is often very much wider, depending on the role we've all got in the council.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, did you want to come in at that point?
Yeah, I was. Thanks, Chair. I was only going to say, as part of that, what we are rolling out is this meta compliance system for mandatory training. So basically, it flags on the system who's done stuff and is an easy way to do things. Councillor Evans, I think that was probably part of what you were referring to, because they were using it for information governance and IT and etc. So we can pick up a conversation about how that can tie in to help make this a bit easier, I think.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor James.
I've actually answered my own question. Before we were talking about the dates in that table, and I've actually found the bit that answers the question, so I suppose I don't need to ask it anymore.
Okay, thank you. If they've got a question, I would ask it on the data. We've got 2 years of monthly referrals, and when I look down to look at the referral sources, I see that the police are far away the greatest referrer. You must have noticed in the last few days the Metropolitan Police are wanting to withdraw from social service work, as they term it, as I would term it. So do you see that having an impact on you in the near future? Please.
No, that's in terms of Metropolitan Police, that's been sort of really focused on mental health work, in terms of their role and whatever. And I'd say they've got a very, very important role in terms of safeguarding, in terms of when we do assessments in the community, in terms of making sure the person we're assessing is safe, but also people around them. However, from a Gwener perspective, we have our crisis teams, these mental health teams across the boroughs, and I think we've got, you know, we work very closely with the mental health concordian for Welsh Government, so we're in a better position, God forbid that comes in here, than probably other areas, or especially parts of England. So within our sort of in our police hub, we've actually got mental health practitioners, both nurses and social workers, actually based with the police. So they're actually going out responding, you know, as a first point of call if it looks as if there's a mental health issue or concern that's been raised by the public. So from an adult perspective and from a mental health perspective, that wouldn't be a positive thing for the police to completely withdraw, but actually that is something that we're having those discussions with the police all the time. And again, we are a little bit more better prepared, only because we're actually based in the operational rooms with police and us and social work and mental health staff and nursing staff.
That's very reassuring.
Natalie Gwener, Head of Children's Services. I just wanted to come on behalf of Children's Services. In terms of our relationship with the police, I've been determined that it's really positive. They're based within our safeguarding hub with our social workers. So that's our front door. So they assist us in making timely decisions when it comes to protecting vulnerable children. We also engage in joint training workshops with our police colleagues, and they're very much engaged in the safeguarding board. So I can only say from a Gwen's perspective that really positive relationships.
Thank you very much. That's most reassuring. But I don't think anybody else has got any other questions. So thank you very much for your attendance. Right. We're now going on to item 7, the conclusion committee. Yep.
Which I'll take it points flagged. One of the first objective electric vehicle charging strategy and taking your comment here about the number of charging points. Is there any way to get a definite number? Ross said he'd take that as an action, so request and get that number for him. Then Councillor Evans mentioned about looking at benefits for residents, etc. And using bus lanes. How can we encourage the residents to move electric vehicles? Is the other job to do? Could we possibly put more information about this into the consultation? Ross said that they can look at the questions to see how they can inform this as well. Also, a better definition on the fast and rapid charging. Ross said that I have more information about this in for clarity as well. Was there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make in relation to that report?
Well, as we said at the start, it was very much a framework strategy, and the devil will be in the detail. And we actually see how it will affect individual areas of the city. I was up in Hopkins Town recently with a Gavel meeting, and they had one of these hub charging points in a car park there, which seemed to be totally unused. You know, and to me it seemed as though they were actually probably going to encourage antisocial behaviour by leaving these spaces without people in. But that's something that remains to be seen. But what we were actually asked to do with the electric charging was consider the charging strategy in its aims. Well, we've done that, and how it links. The second point is how it links to the synergies that exist in Newport City Council plans and priorities. How do we feel about that one? Is it in line with our aims?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah, Chair.
Please.
Just on that last point, I know maybe I should have brought it up. I'm just interested, really, as we are rolling more charging points and there are more uses of electric cars, how that is actually impacting on the air quality now. I know there is a group that monitor air quality in a few parts of Newport and all that, but I think it may be useful, you know, a part of the strategy here is that we may conduct sort of test on air quality just to show the impact of more, you know, this sort of greater use of electric vehicle is having on air quality within sort of our congested streets. I mean, it's bound to make a difference. I would have thought, I don't know what's the penetration of electric vehicle use currently, but if you say 20–30%, then I would have thought it should have an impact on air quality. Should that be part of sort of our strategy here to monitor that and to see how that is being impacted?
As you've rightly said, there are air quality monitoring groups, and the one that seems to be particularly active is the one that comes from Mountains Road down through I was going to say Corporation Road, but I think it also takes in May as well. And they seem to be quite active on that. And then probably there probably is data available for that. The corridor that covers the Quillian Road one doesn't seem to be anywhere near as active. But there we are. But it's a point well worth taking on. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor James, do you want to come in on that one? No?
I was going to, yeah. I think there are groups, as you said already, sort of monitoring this. So there's a Malpas Road, Chepstow Road and Cullion Road group that meets every so often. But there was a part in the report that did mention the impact it have on air quality. It listed all the air quality management areas in Newport. So I think it probably is already in there to some extent, at least.
There's also data available for the M4, which I've sent for previously, but that should be showing improvement. That's a Welsh.
Yeah. I was aware it's there, Lauren. It's really the summary of the impact of that I thought would be useful. You know, I mean, I think if someone was to ask me, you know, we see all these people using electric cars and so on. Do you know what sort of impact that had on the air quality generally in Newport and maybe in some of the areas? The information may be there, but I think part of the strategy ought to be monitoring and maybe summary of that sort of benefit we're getting.
Yeah, the information is probably out there. There's certainly an officer in mind that you'd be able to ask, but perhaps that's something we can recommend then, that we get that summary in the report.
Yeah, so we're asking for that to show as an appendix to the minutes of this meeting. If we want it back. Yeah. We'll attempt this again in the future, but probably not in the near future. So we don't want to wait that long for this information to go public, if you like.
Yeah.
So is that a reasonable thing to ask?
Request to get the figures.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bright, you want to come in?
Just on that point about air quality, the report does say it lists how they will measure success. And it does say they'll look at air quality and nitrogen dioxide and other materials and air quality management areas. So yeah, it does really say that they're going to measure success on improving air quality. But yeah, it'd be great to get figures as they are now for comparison later today.
That's not bad.
Moving on to the safeguarding report.
Thank you. Sorry, thanks for that. You mentioned I've got some written down saying about a few different systems and information is accurate. Please could be removed from the report. What was it exactly?
Sorry, it's just we had on the graph there was information about school completion of schools on the you start 2%. Which is not really,
yeah, but also it's because they're using two different systems, and they've told us that they're going to combine these now.
But members of the report which has only done 2%, and I think training parties are.
And I think you asked that if the stats were irrelevant, that they shouldn't even be in the document.
Well, it shouldn't. It's false information. It's
You also mentioned recommendations to write this to make it easy as possible to do future training.
We've made these recommendations in the past. I do think it needs to be a priority to make it as simple as possible to access training courses. I used examples which recently was more where we had this word fishing with a PH, and you clicked on the module and completed the course. And it registered that you completed it. Some of these previous safeguarding things have gone off into Southeast Wales and all the different parts of the world and out of there. So just to simplify the system.
Yes. Sorry. Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So look, we're doing a bigger piece of work around mandatory training across the council anyway, just trying to simplify it. Councillor Evans, part of the problem lies with some of those courses, they're not ours, they're hosted elsewhere. So some of the issues we have are about access to those systems, but you're absolutely right, we just got to make it as simple as possible for everybody to do it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to that particular report?
Well, I think our basic threat there was we were content with the work that they were doing, and we just would like them to focus on outcomes rather than stats. Yeah.
Personally, a little bit more of what we do to address problems in a simplified way. We don't need the issues, the problems, how to solve it, and timescales.
And I think from memory, we used to get more anecdotal evidence given to us by the heads of services about maybe where things that cost an awful lot of money to put things right, if you recall some of the previous committees we've had.
That kind of information, so Chair, would that something that the committee would like in future reports, or would that be more of a verbal when they present it?
Well, it'd be more of a verbal because it's outcomes. But I think what it has done in the past is helped influence cabinet decisions about where investment should be made in social services in terms of these properties that he took over for making sure that vulnerable children and people are looked after in Newport rather than being externalised to other agencies or other authorities. So I think that is quite valuable.
Well, that was in relation to directive social services report rather than safeguarding.
But of course, the safeguarding impacts on the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our item agenda was the consultation update. But thanks to Anwai's comment, the consultation being quite an improvement from previous years, commended the officers, and also the Fairness Commission been really important. How when you personally done a survey about this, so that could possibly help other users of it as well. So it's been helpful. Things that this is a comment about no emails or letters being included in the final number of the report. Even though they've been in the cabinet report, it would be helpful to include all the numbers in future reports, which Tracy said she will do this. Also, Councillor Bright's comment about how we collect people's comments. You say survey, there's no current option to leave your email address to include you in future surveys. Tracy said that could be picked up on as well. Other than that, was there any other comments or recommendations that you would like me to include?
Anyone? No. Okay, so I think we were generally content.
We go on the data from page 153 is the Scrutiny advisory reports. Sam has included the action sheet. Everything appears to be completed. As we said in the minutes, I would ask Sam about getting an email trail about the university, see what's going on with that. Appendix B is the draft annual forward work programme for the committee. Sam and I met up with directors and heads of service across the council to discuss topics that most of the annual topics which come to this committee, and if there was anything new or existing that we could look at pre or post scrutiny. This is the draft version that we have at the moment. We've done today's meeting. The next meeting will be on the 23rd of June at the Welsh Language Annual Report. 28th of July, information risk report is the climate change annual report. 8th of September, the annual corporate lobby and self-assessment and the digital strategy report. Another meeting at the end of September for the strategic qualities plan annual report. Meeting on 27th of October for the transformation plan and the budget consultation plans and the development of the medium-term financial plan. This is something which is going to be coming to this committee, and the equality action plan. December will be the scrutiny annual report, and then the bit earlier would be the consulting meeting for the budget. On the 19th of January. At the moment, there's currently nothing in for March's and April's meeting, but as Sam has advised before, the forward work programme is owned by the committee. You're free to add or remove any items. Obviously, there's some which we can't remove because they are statutory, but if there is anything the committee would like to add, then we can.
Could I suggest? Sorry, could I suggest that out of this morning's discussion, we need to be looking in October at the budget consultation. If that's November would be too late for it, wouldn't it? Because it'd already be in place then. So can you talk to the relevant officers, please, Neil, and find out where the appropriate place is to put that, if indeed the committee does want to talk about the budget consultation.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be included in the 27th of October's meeting. Chair the budget consultation plan, so that would be an opportunity for the committee to have mould how it's in the consultation plan.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. And so when we meet next on the 23rd of June, because there is only one item, it's 21 item in the agenda, isn't there? And that's not going to take. We can be here for 15 minutes, please. Or
is that can.
Well, we might have another one when we come to the final item on the agenda.
Yeah, sometimes some reports are given to us within a quick turnaround. I think currently at the moment that is the only one there. It needed to be put there because it needed to go to the cabinet.
right.
Yeah, otherwise that meeting might not have been there. The next meeting would have probably been July.
Yes.
Yeah, so we try to make sure that we do have 2 item agendas on most meetings. Yeah, but unfortunately, we don't get that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, talk to the author of the Equality Action Plan, as we talked about that this morning. If they were able to bring it forward, it might not be ready yet, but we can ask, can we?
And bring into a quick meeting.
Well, into this Welsh language report, sir.
I'm certainly request. I wouldn't have thought they would be able to bring it so quickly, though. But it's certainly something I would request with Sam.
If they say no, they say no.
Yeah, I can say yes, actually. Then the last part of scrutiny advice report would be the scrutiny topic referral. Councillor Evans made a request which is on 167. Basically look at the levelling up funding bids and why they think failing. We took this and we've liaised with Tracy Brooks, the head of Regen and Economic Development. Taken comments also from Tracy and Leanne, Democratic Electoral Services Manager, which is on their comments are on pages 168 and 169. So their comments that they feel that they recommend that this shouldn't come to committee to be discussed. See, it would be down to the committee to decide whether you taking these comments into consideration, whether you feel that it is a topic scrutiny can add value to. If so, which committee would go to? What kind of things would you like? Otherwise, we can request the information and the committee has an information report, or the committee can decide to just refuse outright the referral. So it's down to committee chair what they decide.
I'm not quite sure what scrutiny committee can do with something that's a UK government action.
Can I explain that, Chair?
Please.
It's not a political point. We have now had bids on the city culture, which has failed. We had the bid as far as the streets transformation, £20 million bid, which failed. We've had the Technology Institute bid, another £20 million, failed. We've also submitted the joint bid in the last round of applications, which failed. Now, virtually all our neighbours have been successful in at least one application. When it comes to the actual topic of criteria, the comments from the Democratic and Electoral Services Manager, no, sorry, the Head of Service, this is not a relevant topic for scrutiny. Well, we've got the scrutiny topic selection criteria here. Public interest. Is it the public interest? Is 60 to 80 million pounds in the public interest? Yes. Ability to change. Now, at the moment, the reports go to Cabinet, but there's no feedback. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any feedback in public about what happens to improve bids. Because clearly, we are not doing something right because we failed on all these different occasions. So, you know, it is relevant. It is something we can get involved in. It is something we can get teach stuck into, because we know, for instance, one of the bids was only submitted on the final morning before the bids were due to be thing. So was it rushed? We don't know. We haven't been given any information from it. And this is about how we can improve, how we can look at it, how we can implement, how we can speak to the relevant people. And I'm disappointed that Tracy Brooks isn't here today because, you know, it shows, as far as the committee goes, we're sticking on the end of the report, a few lines on there. It's the UK government funding. It's not about the UK government funding. It's about how the council submits their funding, how we can improve our bids. Do we plan far enough ahead with our bids? Is there any information we can utilise? So it is very much an area where scrutiny can get involved. It's not being examined elsewhere. Nobody is questioning or finding out information in the public domain, the Cabinet. So, you know, I'm sorry, I just totally disagree. But it's something we ignore because it's in the city's interest, and it's something which we should be trying to help. And I've said in the past, you know, I welcomed the bid when it came to tech, non-political. I'm happy as an individual opposition to support bids, want to be involved. If by announcing that publicly that could help with the bids, then so be it. That's great, and I would be more than happy to do that. And I'm not going to be saying, well, it's because we used to go. I want to see these bids work. I want to see them work for Newport. And so if that would help or assist, then I'd be happy to do that. So it's not a political thing. It's a question of how can we, as a council, achieve our goals. And let's face it, so far, 4 out of 4 we failed on. So you know, I think it's something we need to do.
Yeah. Right. It is highly political, Councillor Gordon, as you know, and some of the allocations of monies in England in levelling up areas have gone to some very strange things.
So no, sorry, I'll stop you there, Chair. Labour councils next door have all got funding, so don't try and make it political at all. In Westminster Labour Council, it's nothing to do about politics. In fact, you know, it's even more worrying. Every single council, Rhondda Labour, Blaen and Gwent funding Labour, Cardiff Labour, Swansea Labour, all these have received funding. So don't bring politics in. It's nothing to do with politics. It's about our bids.
And it might be a very reasonable question to ask Mr. Cornwall whether he believes there's sufficient resources being put into these.
I'd quite like to hear other views of the committee first.
Do we have any views? Councillor Davis?
Yeah, looking at that there, with regard to the third bits, I think it would be, if they had feedback on why those bits failed, then that would be useful to know for future reference.
Mr. Cornwall, do we get any feedback at all to why our bids have failed?
I can ask the question. Chair, sorry, Neil asked me to stay on for this item. This isn't it's not in my directorate, so I can ask any question the committee feels they wish to have answered.
I would.
Yeah. So if you want me to ask that question, I can go back and ask that question. Ultimately, you've had an officer response from the head of service and the democratic services manager. It's a committee decision around this now. That's their view, but it is a committee decision. But if there are any relevant other bits of information you require, I can clearly seek to furnish the committee with that.
I can help you there, Chair. They do get feedback. And I can understand that certain bits might be confidential, but it hasn't stopped us from investigating and helping in the past. And clearly, if it's redacted information, then that's understandable. But
so the point that was raised about bids going in at the last minute from another environment, I can assure you that's quite normal. And I vividly recall having to send people to Brussels with great pledges of information they give to the EU for bids on their processes.
Well, you know, it might be funny. I don't care. It's normal or not. Yes, we're having them here and the report to discuss it. Then we can't, you know, we can't ask these questions. If they're not willing to turn up for this, if we're not willing as a scrutiny committee to actually ask these exact questions, is it normal for a bid to go in? Then we are doing a disservice to our residents in the city. Quite frankly, if we're not willing to do this, but just sit here as a tick box or the Welsh language strategy and the so-and-so strategy and the so, then we're not doing our job.
Right. What are the thoughts of the other members of the committee now, please? Do we formally request this or not?
I think, you know, these are reasonable questions to ask, and you know, I too would like to know why these keep failing. I think, you know, I'm going to stay out of the party politics on it. I think there are valid points made on both sides, but at the end of the day, it's our residents who are missing out when these bids fail. So if there are changes that we as a council can make to that process, then we should be willing to ask those hard questions and make those changes, regardless of what the UK government then do with them.
Councillor Horton, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Personally, having put bids in myself for things, I've always gone externally and asked for support from the relevant experts in how to either fill them in or for them to fill them in for me. So there are questions I would like to ask as to process that we followed, but we haven't had any. We haven't seemed to have had any of those. So do we need to see every part of it through scrutiny? Probably not. Are there elements of it that could be useful for us to cast our eyes over and maybe make some recommendations on? Then yes, I think there are.
Thank you. Councillor,
sorry, but to what level we need to see, what level of detail we need to see, I don't know. That would have to be that level of information we'd have to have some guidance on that. But I don't see any reason why we as a scrutiny committee shouldn't see at least a high level piece of information about it.
Councillor Rheoli, do you have a thought on this one?
Well, I mean, what is the question that needs to be asked? What's the question you want to ask?
Well,
Why do bids keep failing?
yeah,
Sorry?
why the bids keep failing?
Sorry, what keeps failing?
The bids for levelling up monies. Why doesn't Newport get a reasonable share of it?
Yeah, of what?
The
A
monies
reasonable
that
share
are,
of what?
the monies that are allocated from UK government for levelling up projects.
Well, I mean, there could be many reasons for that. And do we always fail? I don't know. I mean, is that a fact?
We haven't won one yet.
And this is why we need to find out if there's anything.
Well,
we
I
can
think,
do with our bids.
I think then, you know, I mean, then maybe we ought to ask for a report on that, setting the facts. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, maybe this, you know, if this committee is the right, I'm not sure even this committee is the right place to ask it, is it?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Can someone help here?
Yeah.
right. Councillor Pride, I think you were the only one who hasn't.
Right, well, the question's been asked. We've had the reply back from the head service, and I accept the reply.
Okay. Right. I think we're divided on this, and I don't particularly want to put it to the vote, but could we ask that we get a framework for the way that bids are managed from inception to completion? Clearly, with the feedback item is something else. We may not get that at all from central government. Does that seem reasonable to try and?
So, Chair, I'm really asking for a report to come to our next committee. And it doesn't have to be 700 pages long. Brief outline of bids we've submitted jointly. The information on feedback, which we know we've had, which isn't been in the public domain, although I'm becoming tough, but there's on the website, and potential ways we can assist or make recommendations to ensure future bids are more likely to succeed. And it may be about the timing, it may not be about timing, it may be about the quality of the bids. It could be nothing to do with that. It could be the, you know, I don't know, and I'd like to know. I'd like to know how we can assist.
Right. So, with your permission, then we'll look at the Democratic and Electoral Services Managers finals. Couple of sentences at the bottom of page 168. Running on 169.
No, sorry, that's not. It's not acceptable at all.
It's not acceptable to you, Councillor Adams. Can we see if it's acceptable to the rest of the committee?
It said potentially considered for an information only report. We can't have an information only report. You can't ask questions, and there's no point in coming to scrutiny.
Well, we had an information only report this morning, and they were happy to answer questions.
Well, we don't need to put that in the criteria then, do we? That's a suggestion from one officer. It's not. As strategic directors already pointed out this morning, we can make decisions. It's not for officers to say what we can and cannot do.
Okay, right. We do need to go to a vote. Councillor Evans, make your proposal, and second, if we can take it to a vote.
I move we have a report at our next meeting.
On specifically
why we've been unsuccessful in our bids so far, total of almost £100 million, and how we can assist the Cabinet in making recommendations to hopefully be more successful in the future.
Is that seconded? Nobody's going to second it. Okay, I'm afraid
I'll second, actually.
that was Councillor James, yeah?
Yeah.
Those in favour of the proposal?
So Chair, before, can I just, before we vote on it, can someone advise us then here that this is a valid question for this committee?
We will get a response in due course. Nobody can advise you at the moment, unless Mr. Coleman's going to.
Well, no, Chair. Sorry, Chair. This is off the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, sorry. It's on the agenda. It's on the agenda. It's been referred, gone through the due process, and it's come to us to make a decision. The fact that the officers haven't turned up is neither here nor there. It's come here for a decision. This committee can make that decision and ask for the report. So it's a quite straightforward thing. It's not a political thing. It's how can we improve and get involved for UK government funding, having had 4 bids which have been turned down. So it's come through the system. There is a report, admittedly right on the back with no formal report to it. And so we're merely asking that we get some information on, if it's a question of why our neighbours in Cardiff have been successful, perhaps asking for some comments from them, or from Monmouth, or from Western Supermare, or from Blind Gwames. And then recommendations to Cabinet as a result of that.
I'm afraid, Councillor Holden, I certainly can't give you a guidance on whether it's a proper question. I can only deal with what's being proposed by the committee. Mr. Cole, did you want to go in on this?
Okay.
Yeah, that is so. Some general advice on this. There's been a referral for a topic in. You've got officers' comments on that. I think what you're talking about now is slightly different, but I don't think that makes much difference. This is for debate for the committee. If you're debating to change the title of that, because I think it is slightly different. I don't think that needs to go back for a re-referral. That is for the committee to debate and decide. And if you want a report from officers, a general report on that, the committee votes on it, then bearing any legal objections to that, or any the redaction of any commercially sensitive information, that is for the committee to determine. And we will check the process and legality issues of that, Chair, with the monitoring officer outside of the meeting. But you've got a motion put forward. You've got a second on that. It's up to the committee to vote on it now.
Thank you. It's very clear. Those in favour of the proposal? 1, 2. Those against the proposal? 1, 2. Are you voting, Councillor Allen?
Abstaining, Chair.
Pardon?
Yeah, I'm abstaining because,
okay,
to be honest with you, I don't wish to block information, and I'm not against members asking for information. I am not comfortable about a question that gets filed right at the end here. And there's no advice, really. There is no advice about whether it is the right question for this committee or not. That's why I'm abstaining.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Horton?
Sorry, I'm against for very similar reasons to Mick.
Thank you. So that's 3 against, 2 for.
I'm sorry, you missed the point here.
Well, that's where it's,
It's a gendered item. The fact it's been gendered appallingly. You know, if you hadn't seen it meet down, it was a formal gendered item which has been put right at the back with no forwarding report or information about it, and just a few lines of guidance from the scrutiny team.
okay. Anyway, I'm afraid, Councillor Evans, your proposal has fallen.
Yeah.
There's no other business, I don't think. Yes, no. Thank you all very much for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.